I like being down here with you guys. I feel like I'm a man of people with you guys. Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Good. Do you guys enjoy it? Good.
Great show.
You guys, it's good to see you. How you guys want to go one by one?
Sure. What's the protocol backstage when you see something like what happened with Cody with that chair shot and the blood?
I'll call the doctor immediately. It was obviously really regrettable what happened. I don't know if this is the time to go into detail about what happened, but we had taken precautions in this situation and that specific situation, and doctor was available, and Cody does not have a concussion, and he has staples, and that we're all very grateful for that.
Your first thought about Fyter Fest and the results?
My first thoughts about the results, I think it's really like what happened at the end with Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley leaves us with a lot of really big intrigue going into their match at All Out. I think it's a huge match at All Out coming up, and it's one that people are really excited about. We announced it right before tickets went on sale, and then we had the most demand anybody's ever had for a show when we did our pay-per-view announcement, and I think there's going to be huge demand on pay-per-view, and I think people are really excited about that match. So I think that left a lot at the end. Kenny was up, and Mox was up, and then to see at the end, I think it felt like Kenny had done so much to finish Mox off, but Mox was still there. He took a licking and kept ticking, and that was pretty cool. Also in the women's matches, I thought it was awesome. Rio was tremendous and really earned that victory, and that was a really hard-fought women's match. Also, Allie and her match, I thought they put together a great match, and Allie was tremendous in that. The three-way tag was like a very significant result. I think for the best friends now, they're in a really good position, and we have this tag team tournament that I told the media, and specifically I said to Steve Austin as a member of the media that I wanted to do a tag team tournament, and we're going to do a tag team tournament when we go to a weekly television show. And that was a really important result as well. Shima getting a win, I think that was a really important result. He's got a big match with Kenny Omega in 2 weeks in Jacksonville, right up the road in my backyard, in my little home, in my home venue. I live there in that complex that where you guys are going to go be at the show at. And that was a huge result. Great show all around. And obviously Cody and Darby, that was a big, for Darby, what a showing tonight. And the draw, you saw that, I think they really went for it at the end, and it got really heated. But you got to watch the time limit. And Darby Allin, what a showing! What a great match. And it was unfortunate what happened after the match between when Sean went and did that. And it was an unfortunate situation. And all I'm going to say to you guys on it right now, and I will talk about it more in detail, but you could build the safest airplane in the world, and if there's pilot error, there's pilot error, and that was it was not good. I'm trying to think. That was I covered a lot of the matches there. Do you have any other questions on the matches? Or?
Speaking of Fight for the Fallen in 2 weeks, how do you feel about WWE counter-programming with the Evolve Anniversary show?
We just kind of focus on our shows and what we're doing. I'm really excited about Fight for the Fallen. Thanks for asking about it, because it's something I wanted to do for a very long time since we first had conceived All Elite Wrestling, because I think it's going to make a really positive contribution to my local community in Jacksonville. And, I think people want to come out that day. We're going to have a very good crowd, and I also think that a lot of people are going to watch it on TV, and we'll be taking donations and trying to help victims of local violence. And I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I won't be able to watch that show because we have a lot of things going on of our own. So I think for a lot of people that's probably unfortunate, but there's only so many weekends, and you got to do your shows when you're doing them. So
when you talk about the first episode on TNT, what goes through the planning process of planning what venue you're going to do, what size venue you're going to do, and then moving forward?
It's a really extensive process. It's a really good question, and again, we haven't said anything specific on dates. So, but without saying anything too specific, Raph is standing right here. We've had really extensive conversations on it. We spend a lot of time talking about it, and we're going to have a great lineup of buildings prepared. We're going to do really great TV shows, and I think it's something that people have been missing. There's certainly been one company that consistently has produced really high production value TV and from big arenas weekly on a live basis, and I think, you know, now there'll be more people doing it, and I think that's really good for wrestling fans to have more of that.
Tony,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
you had asked, you mentioned the time limit, and also the Bucks had mentioned that as well. Is that something we expect to see on the TV weekly? Is gonna
Well,
happen?
there's only so much time, we only have so much time on the show, so I think we're gonna have time limits, and you have to, you know, we're gonna have to stay on the time limits, or we have to go on and have other matches, because otherwise, one match could take the whole show,
Sure.
as you saw. But yeah, we will have time limits, yeah.
Tony, tonight we saw attacks, we saw middle fingers, there was cursing, there was blood, there was chair shots. Could we expect some of these things on TNT weekly?
No, definitely not, definitely not. That was, this was not TV, this was a streaming show. It was, you know, it was effectively a pay-per-view in a lot of the world. In the US it was presented free, but this was a pay-per-view. And so you can expect different rules for pay-per-view. And we said going in, these are non-sanctioned, unsanctioned hardcore matches. And I think that that expectation was going in, and we wouldn't have advertised that kind of violence, that, you know, we wouldn't have offered that on TNT. 100% no. So no, that's a good question though, Austin. Thanks for asking, because I'm glad you gave me a chance to clarify.
Tony, with Double or Nothing being so successful, what was the first move after that to make sure that momentum kept going?
I mean, a lot of the pieces were in place. The first move after that was really to make sure we had everything, all the ducks in a row, to do a great series of shows through the summer and through television. And we'd already been working on those things, and it was just really marching that path forward. And I think that's going to consistently be what we have to do to make sure we can all keep offering great shows, not just like minute to minute, and not be a wrestling company where, like, at the beginning of the show, like, I'm telling Keith what is going to happen later in the show, like, you know, which has happened on other wrestling companies before. It wouldn't be the first time Keith's been on a headset and he has no idea what's going to happen on the show he's producing. Like, generally, I think we do a good job keeping, like, the production crew informed, like, what to expect, and sometimes there's surprises, and that's what makes wrestling great, like live TV, and that's that awesome aspect of it. But, like, going back to your question, Chris, like, I just think that, like, we have to keep, like, planning ahead to keep producing great shows, and, like, it's only going to ramp up when we get to weekly. Right now we've been doing a show a month, and we had Double or Nothing, which is a great pay-per-view any way you slice it, and we did that. Thanks, Austin.
Sorry about
if we were in Jackson, because if you don't know the background, Austin, like,
That's
played
gonna be fine.
Austin played for the Jaguars, and so a lot of people don't know that we're in the scrum. So, like, I want people, because we did the last scrum at Double or Nothing. People are like, "Why do you keep playing?" Because he played for us in Jacksonville. He's my friend. And but yeah, coach would have fined me for that.
Find me.
I can't find you anymore. But anyway, I'm sorry. It was too fun. It's a good fun. I haven't seen him like this in a while. I'm sorry, but anyway, back to your question. We have to keep doing great shows. It's really fun being here with you guys, and I think it seemed like people really enjoyed the show. The crowd afterwards was really happy, and it makes me really happy because, you know, it's the second show in a row. We've had a lot of fans in a building. I think production-wise, Keith and the guys did a great job, and the wrestlers killed it. So we just have to keep doing that, and it takes a lot of work to prepare to do that. And so the day after Double or Nothing, like, everybody was out, notebooks out, pens out, like, making plans, and we just have to keep doing that and plan ahead, so we're not doing stuff at the last minute, trying to throw stuff together and trying to agree to what we're gonna, you know, it's no way to run any kind of business.
Tony, with the way the rundown was set up tonight, it was action, promo, action, promo, action. Not a lot of cool down spots, but you didn't lose the crowd at all. What does that say about what you guys were able to accomplish, and is that something you can expect with TV as you move forward?
It's like when you watch, like, a professional fighting event, like if I were watching, say, a UFC or a mixed martial arts event or a boxing show, that's how it would be. There's fights, you know, I was at the Ruiz Joshua fight at MSG at ringside, and I watched, and it was, you know, they had fights, and there weren't a lot of cool down spots between the fights, and they went out and they had a great main event, and built up, and the crowd was really with it. And I think it's the same thing with a wrestling show. If you want, like, have focus on the fights, people are here to see the matches, we advertise the matches, and also people are really into what we do on promos, and I think, like, our social media, being the Elite and the Road 2, we do some of the best stuff anybody's doing out there in terms of building up matches, and doing, like, unconventional stuff, and doing, like, comedy, and we did, like, some comedy stuff in the matches tonight, and I will say that, like, there was, like a hardcore match with a non-wrestler performing, and there was an element of nepotism, and you're going to see that every time we come to CEO, like, which will be once a year, and at least you're not getting it once a week.
Whoever are you talking about?
I was going to say, earlier on, the Young Bucks had mentioned that they thought Fyter Fest might be a one-off. Is this going to be a partnership, whether it's with this particular event or in Daytona that you want
I really liked it. I thought it was really fun. People seem to have a good time. I think we could do this every year. I don't know why I wouldn't want to come back and do this. And Alex is a great partner, and you know, it wasn't my favorite match of the night, but they went out and he worked really hard, and they really like he put a lot on his shoulders. And going out, I was like, you're planning to do a lot more than like almost any non-wrestler with your own level of experience has gone out and done in this kind of setting. And do you feel good about it? And I thought he did a really good job. And Kenny and us, I put a lot of faith in Kenny to get this right, and Kenny put a lot of faith in him. And you know, I thought he did a good job. And you know, that aside, like just the show in general, I thought the fans from the convention were great. I really enjoyed the experience of being here all week. With the gaming fans, there were a lot of people who like didn't really know the wrestling going in, and I think there were some people that came in from the convention like that, but when we got in here, it felt like the people really did know our stuff. It felt like it was a crowd that really knew us very well, and I think there was some crossover with the convention, but generally I think we have like a pretty loyal fan base, but they enjoyed the convention too. There's a lot of people that were just doing both things, and I think that's great, and it's a really important thing to Kenny, so it's a really important thing to me. So,
I'm sorry.
Guys, last question.
no, it's fine. I'm good. I hope you guys. Well, I'm fine. I'm fine, Mandy. I actually really enjoyed catching up with you guys, and I met a lot of people seem like they have stuff. So what's up, Paul?
So from your perspective, I mean, what's more satisfying? Is it signing a big name like Moxley, or is it kind of introducing the world to like a Darby Allin, where nobody really knows him, but everyone's chanting his name tonight? What's more satisfying?
No, there's like you can't have like a one-person wrestling company. You can't just have one thing. There's no way you can have like a wrestling company that people feel good about. There's never been one in the history of the world where there was just like one act that people care about. There have to be like a lot of really interesting things going on. Like you have to have really established performers that people care about, like to bring in the casual fans, but also just to like bring it out for everybody that 100% of the people care about, like John Moxley. And then you have Darby, who like any hardcore wrestling fan by now has seen. And it's funny you bring it up because they just recently, like not for us, but an independent match. They had a great match. And it was awesome. And then they both came in and separately had awesome matches tonight. But I think a large percentage of our fan base probably knows him, but I think it's actually a great thing because like they can almost work together. And I don't prefer one thing to the other. I think it's great to have both. And like having somebody with the star power of a John Moxley who can bring in so many fans, like hopefully we'll introduce like more people to how great Darby is and like what an awesome performer, what an awesome wrestler he is. And I think everybody enjoyed like Darby in a setting. I thought it was an awesome wrestling match, and so yeah, I just think you need both.
We've seen how like Jungle Boy was in the Battle Royal, and then today he got to showcase himself a little bit more in singles competition. There's a lot of people here on the roster that want to get their chance to showcase, and we've heard the stories in WWE. We listened to Moxley when he was on with Jericho. There's been a morale issue. There might still be one. What's the plan for? Or what if
I have no idea. I don't know if there's what do you mean?
Like how are you planning to incorporate everyone on the roster, whether it be social media?
You're not going to see everybody on the show every week and like stuffed in just for the point of having them on the show, just to get them in like a small segment. I want to try and get people in like meaningful segments every week on every show. So that means that like some people, not everyone's going to be on every show, and a lot of our best performers like weren't on this show, and a lot of top people. And just like that, in a Fight for the Fallen, there's going to be top people that are on the show. At the biggest pay-per-views, we'll try and get every big name, at a Double or Nothing and All Out and Future. The biggest pay-per-views that are on our roster, whether it's 4 or 5 of them a year. You're going to see everything but the kitchen sink. But I think, there's a difference with like a 4-hour pay-per-view with like a 1-hour pre-show, how many people you can get on, to this where, it's a streaming special where you're scheduling maybe a 1-hour pre-show and then, a little under 3, and then you're planning, 2-hour TV show, you'll obviously be able to use even less people. So I just think rotating performers and trying to make sure you have everyone keeping storylines, that's where social media will be involved. And also trying to do, hopefully, like more hours of content, trying to incorporate more people, but in a schedule that like is manageable. Because like I think you can keep people relevant and give people like things to do in wrestling without keeping them like on the road 5-6 days a week.
You have such a stacked roster on that note. How much space do you have left? Like how many more members of the roster?
We're not actively out like trying to sign people to fill out the roster. I don't think we need like depth across the roster. I think we have like a really deep, awesome roster, and we have top stars too. So it would have to be like something really, really captivating. So if we're making moves in free agency, it's because we feel really strong. And I've said this before, I feel like really good about the roster we have. I feel like it's a really stacked roster. And I'm glad to hear that's kind of the popular thought now, and it's not just me saying it. Because I think we have a really stacked roster. So yeah, you better believe if anybody signs with us as a free agent, we feel really, really strongly about him, because we certainly don't need to add anybody. We have a really great group. We're going to have great men's singles and tag and great women's singles and tag divisions, tournaments, and champions. I think we're really close to crowning an awesome champion between Chris Jericho and Hangman Page. I think, and then from there we'll be announcing how we'll be crowning our other champions in the divisions, and trying to make those really meaningful, and I think they are really meaningful, and you'll see that, like, just like you guys asked about, doing shows where it's like the focus is on the matches, but we didn't lose anybody. I think it's by design, because like people want to see great wrestling matches, and a show that's like focused in the arena, and I've talked about that a lot. I talked about it the last time I did a scrum with you guys, and I talked about it, I think, on the radio with Mark Henry, and I've talked about it on Steve Austin's podcast, that I want to do shows that are focused in the arena, and I think I talked about that with you, Chris, on YouTube, that I'd like to keep the shows focused and not too much backstage, because I think what people care about is the content, mostly of the wrestling matches. That doesn't mean 100%, but probably, 90% of the show or more should be like wrestling.
Tony, we see companies like New Japan where stipulations are very few and far between on certain shows. And you see companies like WWE where there's 1 or 2 stipulations a night. What's kind of your strategy when it comes to using stipulations?
It depends on the show. Like, this is a special show. I think you'll see more stipulations on like pay-per-views and streaming specials. And I think like a TV show, you'll probably see more straight wrestling matches and less stipulations. So this was the kind of format, and and at All Out, you'll see some stipulation matches for sure. We have some really exciting stuff planned for All Out, and I think that you'll see some in that element. You'll probably see more than you will on our weekly 2-hour television show.
How you guys are preparing for All Out? In difference what you did on Double or Nothing or last year's All In.
Well, I wasn't at All In, so it's very different preparation, because a lot of us weren't working that show, and Keith wasn't producing all. So it's a very different team, but those guys learned a lot and took very valuable experience. So certainly coming back a year later, a lot has changed, and we all got a lot of valuable experience from producing Double or Nothing and learned a lot. So it'll be our first event of that magnitude, of the full-blown pay-per-view, available here and worldwide on pay-per-view. And I think that it's, we have a lot to live up to. We have a big act to follow, big shoes to fill after Double or Nothing. And I think we're really up to it. I think All Out's going to be an awesome show. I think it's very cool the guys are coming back with All Out, a year later. And with a chance, with this loaded roster, everything they had then and so much more, and a chance to do something really special.
You personally, how are you handling the responsibilities of not only starting up AEW, but being an executive for a couple of sports teams, particularly with Fulham with the transfer window open right now?
It's a great question. It's really hard. I've been in London this week, and I've been here, and I've been going back and forth, and I've been in Jacksonville. It's really nice having the show in Jacksonville, so I was able to do a little bit of work there. And I've been doing work in the transfer window. I talked to George Mendez on the phone from the show. I talked to George Mendez last night in my hotel. I don't think there are a lot of executives like in the championship, like they're talking to George every day, like they're in the position I'm in, about trying to do deals. I've talked to like the biggest football agents in the world, not to just drop George's name, but a lot of other guys too that I could drop, but while I've been here, and a lot of teams, because there's a lot of interesting things going on in the market. So I am like a really active executive. I can also talk to you about what the Jags are thinking going into camp, but I generally try not to get like too in-depth, same as when I did a Fulham podcast where I did over an hour with the Fulham guys recently, and I think that podcast did really well in the sports podcast. I don't know if worldwide it did the kind of numbers Steve did, because I think for Steve Austin it was one of the, if not the biggest show download-wise Steve ever did. I believe it was the biggest download show Steve Austin's ever done, which is saying something, because Steve's interviewed pretty much everybody in the business, and we did real well with that Fulham one that I did, but I stayed away from the wrestling on there too, and we didn't talk about it at all, except they briefly congratulated me. It was like 5 seconds, and I said thanks. But I try not to get too deep into it, because everyone wants to focus on wrestling here, but it's hard for me, because there's only so many hours in the day. You have to multitask. It's really hard.
One of the things I noticed with your style is your transparency. How important it is for you to be open, honest, not only when you're doing these interviews, but with talent, like when they first meet you, you want to make a good first impression, and pro wrestling is not known for transparency a lot of times when it comes to other companies. So it seems like, a different style that you're kind of going. Are they kind of a little bit what do you,
Well, if I'm in sports, you can't not talk about the other teams. Like, it's different here because we you're playing yourself almost, because you have to to put on the best show you can. You can't focus on the competition here. And for me, so the competition is almost ourselves and putting on like the best event we can put on. That's challenge ourselves and focus on ourselves and like do the best within ourselves. So it is different, but I think there's other sports like that. It's like playing golf. You know, you can like see what other people are doing relative to par, pay attention. Like, okay, well, you know, I need a birdie here or whatever. But at the end of the day, like it's about you and what you're doing. It's like you have to focus on yourself. So it is. I do think that it is cool because it is different than the other sports I play because you spend so much time like scouting and watching tape of other people. And here, I mean, you can scout other wrestlers and you watch, which is great because I love watching wrestling, right? Like other companies and stuff. But you can make use of it and you know make it like an actual valuable skill instead of the one thing you're doing that's not like productive use of your time watching you know English football and watching NFL and college football. But anyway, like it's I just try to be transparent with like the media in all sport, you know, in England with Fulham and with the Jaguars, you know, because you guys are just doing your jobs and with the fans too, because at the end of the day, I think that's like one of the reasons people like you know like AEW, not just from me but from the wrestlers. Like we've been pretty real about it. I mean, you know, they're certainly like you know I think it's 2019 and people know wrestling's a work, but like we do come out and try and be like pretty like straight with you guys about like what we're doing. That like this is from our hearts and we are trying to give something to the fans, and I think people have really like bought into it and believe in it. And so I do think that kind of transparency like has really paid off, not like from me specifically, but also like from just like everybody here that like we really like it. And everybody has a different, you know, everyone has a different take on it. Like Max came in and gave you his version of it, but that's, you know what, that's real life because like that's like living with him. Like, you know, that's like being in business with him. You go places with him and you're people and they're like, that guy's like really rude. And you're like, yeah, it's what he is. Like, so it's just like it's life with MJF.
How has the creative team evolved in the past few months since AEW has really gotten underway? Is it booked by committee or is it
since inception? It's been a committee. It's like I think it's like a lot of wrestling companies probably function with like one person who's like at the end of the day has to like make calls and go over everything, but with a bunch of people working together. We have a system. We have a group of coaches that go through each match, and every match has a coach. And then we have the EVPs who creatively are working together on everything, but not everybody's necessarily working the same amount on everything. Like for example, Kenny Omega, super involved and personally coaching the women's matches. And like, but me, I'm going over everything with everybody to some degree, and so yeah, that's how. I mean, it's a committee, and we have a lot of people that are really involved in different levels and but yeah, to answer your question, I think it's probably set up like a committee. But with the executive vice presidents all have like an incredible amount of input because everyone's got their own things that they focus on, not just their own, those guys, their own angles, but other people's angles too. They all are really involved. The Young Bucks are like super involved in what goes on in like tag team wrestling in our company. And like Cody, not just in the singles, but with so many people throughout the roster and our production and every one of them comes up with things that you wouldn't believe, like little elements of the show. Like there's great parts of all of our shows and you wouldn't believe it. I'd be like, oh, that was some great thing. And Nick Jackson came up with it. And that had nothing to do with the Young Bucks, but you know, just different things, and that's what's really cool. We talk a lot, and I can be, and that's back to the question before about how I juggle all these things. I can be in England with a meeting with like all the biggest soccer agents and football clubs and trying to negotiate deals and with players. And you know, I can look at my phone and I got 68 text messages on the thread with Cody, Matt, Nick, and Kenny, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll catch up. And you scroll through. It's just stuff moves fast. We all talk a lot, and Brandy's very active in stuff going on with the women too. We have a lot of people. Christopher Daniels was very involved in the creative. Chris Jericho always has amazing ideas. So it is like very much a committee. But that's a great question. Is there anything else?
Tony, Jungle Boy and Ali talked about it a little bit earlier about intergender wrestling. What are your thoughts on it, and could we possibly see it in AEW?
Probably won't see it in AEW. If there was one thing, I'll just be like super frank about this. If there was one thing, how many of you guys were at All In? Who was at All In? A bunch of you guys were at All In? The Battle Royal, does anybody remember when Jordan Grace got hit in the face?
Yes.
That was probably the one thing I didn't like about All In. That, and there were two things I didn't like about All In. That and the penis druid. And I didn't like the penis druid.
Okay.
I wouldn't do the penis druids on TV. I wouldn't be able to do that on TV. On pay-per-view, you could probably do the penis druids. On pay-per-view, I probably would have done the penis druids. the truth.
Okay.
Here's what I didn't like about it, to be honest with you. Here's what I didn't like about it at the time is like I'm a big Hangman guy, and like he won the match, and you almost kind of forgot he won the match because like it was a big. You want to protect that guy in that situation. You feel real strong about that guy, and then look at in our company now and the 2 big shows we've done. I think he's come out and delivered, and I was talking to Steve Austin, and I don't know if you guys all listened to that, but Steve Austin said that guy's got star written all over him, and like Steve's not going to say it if he doesn't believe it. Like that guy's a star, and he came out, he's a big star again tonight, and that was just how I felt. I was like, like it almost you almost forgot Hangman won the match. So that's why I didn't like that. But I didn't like when Jordan Grace got hit in the face. I'm sorry to sidetrack, but yeah, I didn't like and I don't think that's cool, and like. I am like really against domestic abuse, and I don't think I'm not saying that it is, and it's a really complex question, and I knew it would come up sooner or later, but it's probably not what we're gonna do, and we're gonna focus on a men's division singles and tag and a women's division singles and tag, and have those divisions, and there could be a mixed division. Maybe I don't know. I haven't thought that much about it, but mixed matches we're probably not what we're gonna focus on.
On the penis druids, how actively did you guys court Joey Ryan before he made the choice to sign with the Indies?
That's great. I really like Joey. Yeah, I don't know. It's I've opened up a can of worms on this. No, it's funny. I didn't book. I was at my show. I didn't book the show. So like I was just like I said, it wasn't that. It was just like I didn't like the whole thing with Hangman.
No, I just wonder if you guys should sign him. Like, did you guys actively try to get Joey? I mean, he does seem to have gone elsewhere.
Yeah, he's doing. There's a lot of. There's tons of people I really like that aren't here. But I'm not saying whether I've made like active offers. I'd rather not get into like everybody we haven't made offers to. But I really like Joey. Joey's great, and he's obviously like really a featured character on Being the Elite, and he's really good friends with like a lot of the guys in the company. He's an awesome wrestler. But yeah, I wasn't. I like Joey. I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that element of. It was one of the best pay-per-views I think of all time, and like I said, I did like that. The penis druids are a lot better than Jordan Grace getting hit in the face, in my opinion. If that makes sense.
That's fine. You said penis druids like 6 times. I'm sorry. It's just funny.
It's good. It's funny. Yeah, it's good. I'm glad we elaborated on.
You mentioned how like you got a lot of depth on the roster now, and the roster might be set for now. The same way football team might try to bring in some guys who are like the good character guys. It seems like you've got a lot of those. Wrestlers who are good character guys. And we've heard that a lot today where it seems like everyone's very positive. Everyone kind of has each other's back. Is that, go into it? You just don't want, a big name star here or someone who's a good worker, but you want to make sure you get the right types of people here?
Yeah, that's absolutely been the case here. That has come up several times where there were people that we didn't take that we all think are like awesome wrestlers, like really good people that aren't here because I think people didn't want to deal with a headache. And without like naming specific people, I just think that like absolutely that's in any sport, like there's people that the talent's like undeniable. So I think it's like a really great question. It's one of those things that you always have to balance it, right? Because sometimes you can take a risk on somebody that doesn't have a great reputation because you've just heard things. So it depends on the information you get, right? Like firsthand, did somebody in the company like dealt with it, and they'll say yeah, that's just a really hard person to work with. Well then, if they've already been down that road and they really feel strongly about it, then they're probably telling you the truth, right? So that's a pretty good indicator, I think, in any sport. Like if you have people that have been in the locker room with those people, whether whether it's football or wrestling, I think you can trust your people, and I think what we have here is like a really good dressing room with people that have worked together before, and people that feel real strongly about each other, and the people that haven't worked together before, they work with somebody here before. Everybody knows somebody here, and that's a really good question because that is one of the strengths of our company. I think is we have a really good group of people, and there are tense moments for sure, but it's been certainly through 2 shows. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, is there anything? Do you guys have anything else?
Do you have a city picked out for the first TNT show?
I've not confirmed it yet, but we're working on cities, not just for the first one, but for all of them because it's going to be.
Why is it Jacksonville?
It's funny. And bear in mind, planning to go in the fall, and it will be during football season, so that'll be obviously be thinking about that for sure. But I really enjoyed catching up with you guys. I try to answer everybody's questions. If anybody has anything else, and I'm always pretty available. So it's great catching up with you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys.